I'd love to see your envious face, but I'm not that cruel, so I'll let it be. It'd probably be awkward for you to see me, so why don't you hide in the bathroom or something? She laughed noisily over the phone, mocking me. I detest this woman more than anyone in the world, no, in the universe. 13 years ago, she stole my husband from me. I'd like to cut ties, but that's definitely difficult to do, because sadly, this woman is my biological sister. I held the phone to my ear after a while, and let out a small chuckle after she hung up on me. My name is Ruth, a 37-year-old divorcee. My marriage fell apart in just 6 months, and it's all because of my villainous sister. I have an identical twin sister named Rachel. Even our longtime friends mistake us for each other because we look so much alike. However, contrary to our appearance, our personalities are completely different. I'm more of the quiet type, while Rachel is active and tends to take charge of things. I was the better one in academics, while Rachel excelled in sports. Rachel's the type who blurts out whatever she's thinking. How can you wear such unstylish clothes? People are going to think I'm not stylish either since we're twins. That'll suck. As you can see, we don't get along. It wouldn't be so bad if it was just at home, but Rachel always brought trouble. Back in our school days, I often got harassed by girls from other schools on my way home. Hey, stop hitting on my boyfriend! Of course, I didn't even know them. Not again, Rachel. Whenever Rachel found someone she was interested in, she wouldn't hesitate to snatch him away, even if he already had a girlfriend. I blame the guys too, but Rachel was worse. And I, being mistaken for her, am a victim too. Moreover, she seems to lose interest once she gets the guy, sometimes breaking up in as short as a week. It's unbelievable. Rachel, you need to stop this nonsense. Have you ever thought about how the other girls feel, and that I'm also suffering too? To my words, she responded, an unattractive woman's jealousy is scary. Anyway, your guy, John, right? He's so dull. I doubt he'll cheat on you. Don't worry, I have no interest in him. He's not hot at all. And talked down on my boyfriend. This man named John is the despicable ex-husband who dumped me without a second thought 13 years ago. We got close because we went to the same tutoring center. He was rather quiet and made me feel at ease. His mother was a fortune teller and was well known for her accurate readings. She even ran a fortune-telling house. We graduated from the same university and decided to get married 2 years later. I had thought I would spend my life with this man, but 6 months after our marriage, my ex-husband, John, placed the divorce papers in front of me and said, "Please divorce me, I can't take it anymore, and I'm sure you know why." Sitting next to him was my sister, Rachel, with a smug look on her face. Taken by surprise, I stammered, "Huh? I'm sorry, I don't understand. Did I do something? I don't remember doing anything wrong." At my words, John banged his fist on the desk and shouted, "Really? How do you have the audacity? You've been cheating on me. Can you still deny it after seeing this?" On the desk were a few pictures showing a man and a woman entering a hotel together. But to me, it looked like I was being shown pictures of my sister Rachel, going into a hotel with some man I didn't know. I didn't understand what my ex-husband was saying at all. The man in the photo must have been just another one of Rachel's flings. No, this is Rachel, it's not me." At that moment, Rachel burst into tears and sobbed, "Ruth, let's stop this. I can't stand lying to John anymore." Then John said to my sister, "Rachel, I'm okay. You're so kind. Thank you." What am I looking at here? John glared at me and started to spew a fabricated story that was simply unimaginable. According to him, I had been cheating, and to avoid being caught, I was constantly borrowing clothes from my sister, spending my spare time at a hotel with my lover, and that I was a terrible woman. John had completely believed this ridiculous story that he'd heard from my sister. "I heard from Rachel that you've always had a bad track record with men. Even when we were dating, you were playing around with several men." I responded to my furious ex-husband, "Are you seriously saying that, John? You've been with me for several years, and you believe a story from my sister, who you've only known for half a year? Are you sane? Are you an idiot?" Perhaps he didn't like my calm response because all he could do was glare at me. And to my surprise, Rachel had the nerve to hit on John. You may have the same face, but your personalities are completely different. You're not charming at all. Rachel always listens to my complaints with a smile. She's so patient. I might have married the wrong sister. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Rachel continued to fake her tears, but I could see her grin. Rachel was always a player when it came to men, since she was a student, but ever since she started working, she had changed the type of men she targeted. She now prioritized social status and money over looks, and John, my ex-husband who worked at a major corporation and came from a moderately wealthy family, was a perfect target. She must have set her eyes on him from the time I introduced him at our wedding. My ex-husband had been completely fooled by my sister's poor acting. I never thought my ex-husband that I'd been with for so long could be this naive, and I could feel my feelings towards him fade away rapidly. You two are despicable. Do as you please, but never show your face in front of me again. I felt tears welling up, but I managed to hold them back. I filled out the divorce papers on the spot and threw them at the two of them. Knowing my cunning sister, she and John probably hadn't started a physical relationship yet. Claiming compensation seems tough. Still, if it meant those two would disappear from my life, I didn't care about the money anymore. When I returned to my parents' house after that, my parents were furious at my sister's behavior and disowned her. When asked about her reaction, she said, "Oh, really? I don't care, but if you're having money trouble, don't come begging to me, okay? Bye then," making light of even her own parents. I found out from a friend that my ex-husband and my sister got married just 3 months later. I was so stunned I couldn't even cry. I felt nothing at all. For 13 years since then, I haven't seen my sister and her husband. But one day, I got a call from a public phone on my cell phone. I always answer calls for work, so I answered and heard, hello, Ruth? I immediately recognized the voice on the other end of the phone. I don't know how you have the nerve to call me, Rachel. At my words, Rachel chuckled and said, "Are you still holding a grudge? You're always so gloomy, Ruth. But whatever, I have a favor to ask." Without showing any remorse for what happened, my sister continued, "I'm pregnant. Oh, of course, the father is John, who you loved so much, haha. So I wanted to let my parents know about their first grandchild. They won't listen to me, so you tell them for me." She had the audacity to command me like that, so I retorted, "What are you so cheery about when you've been disowned?" But she just laughed it off. "How many years do you think it's been? 13 years. I think you're the only one who still holds a grudge. You're probably still living alone at our parents' house, am I right? I'm saying that I'll be the one to give them a grandchild instead of you." She's always been the best at irritating people. "I'd love to see your envious face, but I'll spare you because it's too pathetic. It'll be awkward when you see me, so why don't you hide in the bathroom or something, haha," she said as she laughed out loud while I remained silent. Then she hung up abruptly after saying she would come over on the weekend. I kept the phone to my ear for a while after the call ended and chuckled. That weekend, when I was relaxing in the backyard, my phone rang. I glanced at the screen and saw a blocked number. It was probably my sister. I answered the phone, annoyed. "Hey, unblock me already." I snapped back. "What's wrong with blocking someone I don't want to receive calls from? That's what call blocking is for. Oh, maybe you don't understand because you're stupid. Haha." I laughed sarcastically. I heard something break. Perhaps she was irritated. "I've come all this way. Why is nobody home? I told you I'd come today, didn't I?" "Huh? You were serious? I thought you were joking. Besides, you hung up before I could tell you. I don't live there anymore." "What?" Judging by my younger sister's enraged and slightly shaky voice, it seems she was standing in front of the house we used to live in. However, none of us live there anymore. She was making so much noise and chaos that it seemed likely to cause a nuisance to the neighbors, so I gave her my current address and hung up the phone. After waiting for about an hour, the doorbell rang. There stood a sullen-faced Rachel and John, my ex-husband. The first thing she blurted out was, "You've got some nerve, and what is this place? Why on earth would someone like you be living in such a nice apartment?" She glared at me, her eyes bloodshot with anger. It's no surprise my sister was shocked. This place is relatively new and located in a good area. The rent isn't cheap either. While it may not be a luxury high-rise, it's a pretty decent property. Ignoring the worked-up Rachel, I told them, The neighbors won't like all this noise. Why don't you come inside? Upon showing her into the room, she seemed taken aback by its size. Seeing her frustrated face, I couldn't help but smirk. Our mother, who I live with, was sitting on the couch, silently observing my sister. Well, you said you had something to discuss. I don't mind at all, but if I'm in the way, should I hide in the bathroom or something? I remarked sarcastically. Never mind, I'm good, Rachel snapped back at me. Rachel moved closer to her mother and nervously said, Hi, Mom. Long time no see. I'm pregnant. That's why today we wanted to discuss if it's possible for John and I to stay here for a while. At my sister's audacious request, I nearly burst into laughter, blurting out, Wait, you want me to live with you guys? No way. Have you forgotten what you did to me in the past? Absolutely not. Cutting me off, Rachel said, Ruth, just shut up. This house is still under Dad's name, right? You can't even get remarried and you're still leeching off our parents. How pathetic for a single woman like you. Then Rachel added, Great job taking care of our folks. From now on, John and I will live here and take care of them, so can you leave? Oh, and where's Dad? Is he at work? After seeing my sister speaking with a smug grin, I had reached my limit. However, it was our mother who spoke up first, after listening to her quietly. Dad's gone. He passed away. Mom only muttered those few words. My parents were very serious people and had always apologized to me about my divorce 13 years ago, despite it all being Rachel's fault. My father especially used to say, I should have. Maybe it was my fault for not raising her better. I'm sorry, Ruth. I'm really sorry. He became increasingly depressed to the point where he found it hard to continue working. At that time, both of my parents were in their early 50s, and we were surviving on my income and Mom's part-time job. A while later, my father was diagnosed with cancer and passed away 10 years ago. Just before he died, he said, Don't tell Rachel anything. I don't think I'll make it to heaven if she comes to my funeral. Just as he said, Mom and I didn't contact my sister, Rachel. We moved into this house about 5 years ago. It was because Mom had injured her leg due to overworking. We considered renovating our old house, but it was built at the top of a hill, and we thought it would be too hard for Mom to walk up the hill. Since we started living in this accessible home, Mom said her legs have been feeling much better. I tried to speak calmly, but the thought of the late Dad made me want to burst out crying. It must have been the same for Mom, as there were tears in her eyes. However, Rachel's reaction to my words was, in a sense, predictable. Too little, too late. Besides, it's not my fault Dad got sick. In fact, you're living in such a nice place now because of Dad's inheritance, right? That's not fair. What about my share? Didn't I have the right to inherit? She blurted out such nonsense. Without missing a beat, Mom shot back. Inheritance? There's no such thing. You only came to us when you were in trouble for doing stupid things before your marriage. How many times do you think we paid alimony because you messed around with a married man? Live with you? Never. You must be joking. Don't be ridiculous. It was the first time both Rachel and I had seen Mom so enraged. Sensing the tension, Rachel fell silent. Then John, who had been quiet like a puppet until now, said, Rachel, you've been deceiving me, haven't you? Ever since I married you, my life's been a mess. You're a reckless spender, and you don't do any housework. I had the opportunity to meet some guys who graduated from the same high school as you, and they all said I was blind to marry you. I nearly burst out laughing at my ex-husband's words. He's quite something to have put up with her for 13 years. Moreover, when he approached me, he said, Ruth, I've been regretting our divorce. Do you want to start over here? Let's let bygones be bygones. When he tried to touch me softly, I felt a chill run down my spine. No way, please. Let bygones be bygones? Who does he think he is? Is he stupid? It's not his place to say that. Just as I was about to dodge him, the door to the next room burst open. Could you not touch her with your dirty hands, please? A man suddenly appeared, and both were taken aback. Ignoring Rachel, who murmured, Who is he? I said, I told you to stay hidden because I didn't want to involve you. At my words, he replied, I couldn't stand it when he tried to touch you, Ruth. Besides, I think having a third party will help the discussion, don't you think? Okay. This is my husband, Alex, and... Tony, come here. This is our son, Tony. He's 8 years old. I called out to our son, Tony, who was peeping out from behind the door. Perhaps he had heard some of the argument. He was glaring at Rachel and her husband. Huh? You're remarried? Unbelievable. Why? My sister Rachel was more surprised than anyone that I had a husband and a son. My ex-husband John was just as shocked, gaping like a fish out of water. What do you mean, why? How many years do you think it's been? It's been 13 years. 13 years. Despite all that time passing, you guys haven't changed one bit, which is surprising. Well, you do look like you've aged quite a bit, though. At my somewhat sarcastic words, their faces turned bright red. I met my current husband Alex shortly after my father passed away. We were colleagues for a while, and one day he asked me out. When I rejected him saying that I was a divorcee, he responded, "Does being divorced mean you can't remarry?" and asked me out once more. We got married a year later, and our son Tony was born the following year. Alex treats my mother very well, doesn't mind us all living together, and my in-laws, who already live with Alex's brother and his wife, have reassured me. We're glad you're here for Alex. The one who proposed moving to our current house was Alex, who was concerned about my mother's mobility. I turned to the two shocked individuals. My mother and I are living our lives here. Can you not disrupt? And Rachel, you said you were pregnant. How many months along are you? From their flustered responses to my question, I gathered that Rachel was probably lying about being pregnant. I was only married to John for 6 months, and I never got pregnant. That was the reason my former mother-in-law used to make snide comments. But if Rachel isn't pregnant, it means that's probably the case. Rachel seems to get along with the bad-natured mother-in-law. Unable to stand the harsh glares from my family, the two hastily left our house. I mean, I had heard stories, but is she really your sister? She does look like you, but her character... Anyway, it's settled for now, Alex said with a smile, to which I gave a bitter smile. Really? That evening, the doorbell rang continuously. Looking at the monitor, I sighed. They came after all. When I opened the door, there stood Rachel and John with pale faces. We need help. Can you lend us some money? As they knelt down begging, my husband looked puzzled, but my mother and I felt differently. During the day, while waiting for a call from Rachel, Mom received a call from a certain individual. It was a friend of my deceased father who currently rents our old home. Him and his family are living there right now. When I came back to the house, I found the flower beds in the garden ravaged and the windows cracked. The security footage clearly showed a man and a woman, with the infuriated woman stomping on the flower beds and hurling stones at the window. Of course, it was my enraged sister Rachel on a phone call with me. When Mom gave Rachel's contact info to Dad's friend, she was furious to learn that this was the daughter who had tormented our dear father for years. It seems that in the damaged garden there were rare flowers that were difficult to grow, and they'd asked for compensation. They seemed to be struggling financially to the point of having difficulty with housing, so I expected them to turn up again, but I never thought they'd showed up that very day. I must admit, I was impressed by their audacity. I can give you some money, but there's one condition, I said. As I watched them trudge home with slumped shoulders, I couldn't help but laugh and think, serves you right. In their hand was a written pledge I had just made them sign. I had made them write in the pledge that they would never approach me again in return for me taking responsibility for this incident. But Rachel is still my sister by blood. It's hard to completely cut ties with her. There may come a time when she'll use the power of the authorities to approach me. When that time comes, I'm prepared to fight, using the audio recordings I secretly made 13 years ago, and this time as evidence. Because, you see, I have no intention of forgiving my sister and her husband any time at all. Later, a friend told me that my ex-husband had immediately resigned from the big corporation after our divorce and started working as a staff member in a fortune-telling establishment run by my former mother-in-law. Because they were family, he was paid a high salary, and he and my sister seemed to have been living a life of luxury. However, a few months ago, my former mother-in-law suddenly passed away from illness, and my ex-husband, who had no talent for fortune-telling, took over as her successor. But the establishment quickly closed down. In their desperation, the couple claimed, "This is a bracelet that our late mother lovingly made." They targeted the people who had faith in my former mother-in-law. However, a whistleblower exposed their lies, and the victims formed a group. The victims began flocking to the establishment every day, and my sister, who no longer had a place to live and work, came to ask for my help. I was so irritated by their audacity. However, seeing that the police have started moving, it's probably only a matter of time before the two of them are held accountable for their crimes. After that, we moved again. The reason was my husband Alex's job transfer. Can I really come along? Mom asked apologetically, to which Alex, my husband, responded with a chuckle. What are you talking about? You're an important part of our family, Mother. Even if you resist, I'll carry you over my shoulder and take you along, okay? Upon hearing Alex's light-hearted joke, Mom let out tears of gratitude.
Grandma, you're crying again. Here, have a Kleenex.
Observing his emotional grandmother, Tony was concerned but still smiled. And as I watched my family, I felt a wave of gratitude for the happiness I felt.
I got pregnant with the boss's kid. I'll be taking over as the boss's wife now. At that moment, something inside me snapped. Sarah, my husband's mistress, had been mocking me, flaunting her youth, and trying to assert her superiority relentlessly. She even took my job as a president's secretary, and now she's aiming for my husband? Well, I won't hold back anymore. I'll make sure they both plummet to the depths of hell. I decided to bless Philip and Sarah. I signed the divorce papers that Philip handed to me. Of course, I received a hefty compensation. They got married in Italy with a grand ceremony. Things changed a week later. I got a call from Sarah. Hey, Philip hasn't come home. As his ex-wife, you must know where he is, right? Sarah's voice was frantic. I laughed maliciously, just as I had expected. I kept quiet, but he is. I exposed my husband's terrible secrets. My name is Rose, a 58-year-old working housewife. I work as the president's secretary at my husband Philip's company. 6 a.m., I wake up earlier than my husband to prepare breakfast. Then I head to work alone, tidying up and cleaning the president's office. It's a daily routine. I want Philip to work comfortably. 8 a.m., Philip arrives at the president's office. Thank you, Rose. You cleaned again today. I approached Philip and retied his tie. It's fine, dear. You want to work in a clean room, right? Haha, that's right. Philip and I were married through an acquaintance's introduction. We haven't been blessed with children, but we've lived together, supporting each other. This year marks our 30th wedding anniversary. The company taken over by Philip from his father-in-law is stable, and I've had no complaints about our life. By the way, the new business you planned, Joseph is going to fund it. The transfer was confirmed earlier. That's great. Joe seems to like you. You negotiating helped a lot. The company is run by Philip as the president and his brother as the chairman. Brother-in-law's name is Joseph. Philip calls him Joe. Remember, Joseph funded another business you planned before. Aren't you proceeding with that? I casually asked, and Philip looked annoyed. It's fine. I'll handle it. Okay. Nothing special on today's schedule, right? Yes, because you mentioned it before. Philip smiled contentedly. Good. Then, Rose, there's someone I want to introduce to you. I'll bring them here, so wait for me. Understood. Someone to introduce. I felt a sense of discomfort at his words. Soon, I heard laughter from the hallway. Philip's voice and another was a young woman's voice. As I wondered about their friendly demeanor, the office door opened. Kept you waiting, huh, Rose? Philip said with a pleased look. But I forgot to respond to Philip, fixated on the woman sitting next to him. A very young woman. Her hair was long and neatly arranged, and she was dressed in a miniskirt that revealed her thighs and a camisole that exposed her chest. It was as if she was dressed for a night out. However, she wore it impressively, and I was astounded by her youth. This is Sarah. She'll be working here from today. Nice to meet you. I was dumbfounded. Is this a joke? My husband introducing a young woman to me? This alone was bad for my heart. Moreover, we don't hire fresh graduates. Excuse me, but how old is Sarah? She's 23. I met her at a bar with friends. We hit it off, and she's young and fresh. Gives me energy. Don't you think she'll boost the morale of our employees? Ah, yes. He must be serious, unable to say anything in front of my husband's radiant expression. Then Rose, please teach Sarah the ropes. Ah, Sarah is going to work as a general employee, right? Then wouldn't it be better if... Oh, I forgot to say, we're going to have 2 secretaries from now on. So please teach Sarah the secretary work. 2 secretaries? Is that necessary? Well, you're getting on in years. It's okay to pass on work to the younger ones. Philip laughed lightly, and it pained my heart. Age, the way you say it. Then take care. I'm going out for a bit on a personal errand. I'm counting on you to show her the ropes. With that, Philip left Sarah and me alone in the president's office. I took a deep breath to calm myself. Once Philip decides on something, he tends to rush into it, and he spectacularly fails, only to regret it later. This has happened often throughout our marriage. It's useless to say anything at times like this. For now, I'll just do as he says. It's bound not to work out anyway. Hey, Rose. Sarah tapped my shoulder. Yes? How old are you, Rose? Feeling it was wrong not to answer after asking her age, I told her the truth. I'll be 58 this year. But it seemed my sincere feelings did not reach Sarah. What? You're as old as my grandmother. Poor thing. You could die any time, and yet you still work? That's kind of sad. I gave a wry smile. I like my job. It's not sad. Ah, I see. The sad one is the boss, right? Whether he's at home or at work, he's always with an old woman. Really? Poor thing. With each word she said next, my face grew more strained. What exactly are you trying to say? You don't get it. I guess when you get older, your brain starts to slow down. Sarah let out a big sigh and clearly said, Being young and beautiful, I have higher status than an old lady like you. You understand, right? Her smile was full of confidence, and I shivered. I couldn't stay silent any longer. You know, you should learn some common sense. Did I make you angry? Is it menopause? What? See, you get angry so quickly. It must be hard to keep working if you get upset over such things. Plus, with menopause, you sweat a lot and get short of breath, right? It's embarrassing to try so hard. Maybe it's time for you to retire. As I stood dumbfounded, Sarah laughed and whispered in my ear, Why don't you retire as the president's wife, too? I shuddered. This person intends to take Philip away from me. I couldn't help but raise my voice. Enough is enough. With that kind of intention, I can't teach you anything. Leave the company right now. I expected a quarrel, but Sarah looked at me, with tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry. What? I just wanted to get along with you, Rose, and made a joke, but it was too much. Sarah collapsed to the floor, sobbing. She looked like the heroine of a tragedy. I'll leave this company. Thank you for everything. Sarah ran out of the room. What is happening? Overwhelmed by the sudden turn of events, I stood there dumbfounded, until Sarah returned, with a red-faced Philip in tow. What are you doing? His sudden yell made me tremble. What's wrong, dear? I heard from Sarah you yelled at her. It's because she said something terrible. Don't lie. I've been listening to your conversation. What? Sarah had recorded our argument on her mobile phone. The recording started from the moment I scolded Sarah, giving the impression that I suddenly blamed her without reason and made her cry. That's why she apologized so sincerely, sobbing and all. I bit my lip in frustration. You don't believe me? Believe? Sarah came to me crying about what you did. There's a recording. It's clear whose words have more credibility. A secretary who bullies employees is fired as of today. I couldn't believe it. I had always supported Philip, both at home and at work. He would abandon me for Sarah, who just joined the company? Wait then, who will do the secretary's job? It's decided. Sarah will do it. That's impossible. And what about you? I swallowed the words that had almost slipped out. I tried again in a way that only Philip and I would understand. You know about your hobby. I'll handle that myself. I prefer pure and cute Sarah over you, who lies to me, the president. Besides, a young and beautiful girl like her suits me better than you do, don't you think? Philip narrowed his eyes happily and looked at Sarah beside him. Sarah looked up at Philip with adoration and flashed a brilliant smile. Then she turned to me and stuck out her tongue just a little. I protested to Philip many times, but he wouldn't listen at all. The job of a secretary is not easy. Despite my insistence that Sarah couldn't handle it, all I got back were his overly optimistic words, saying it was an exaggeration or, you won't know until you try. He must think he's become a knight protecting his princess. I was speechless at his foolishness. Hardly what you'd expect from someone running a company. Eventually, Philip threw out my personal items from my workspace. Instead, he arranged a brand new desk and cute stationery for young people, all for Sarah. It was all in vain. Realizing this, I decided not to waste any more effort and left the company. However, Philip didn't come home that night. He didn't return my calls either. I thought it was just his way of getting back at me. But as a week, a month, 3 months passed, I grew anxious. One day, I was called to the company by Philip and was heading to the president's office. Maybe he's finally understood how hard the secretary's job was. Thinking he might have decided to let Sarah go and call me back, I knocked on the president's office door with a sliver of hope. Come in. As I opened the door, I was met with an unbelievable scene. Philip, smiling happily, was holding hands with Sarah beside him. The two of them looked at me and laughed joyously. It's been a while, Rose. We have some big news today. What is it? Actually, Then Sarah put her hand over Philip's mouth. Let me say it, okay? I want to thank the wife. Right. Philip nodded deeply, and Sarah said to me with a beaming smile, We're getting married. Thank you for everything you've done for Philip. What? In front of my shaken self, Philip laughed sheepishly. No, I thought there's no point in hiding it. I'm thinking of starting a second life. You're getting too old. It's better for you to live quietly by yourself. What is that? How dare you? I felt as if the blood had drained from my body. Wait a minute, Rose. The talk isn't over yet. Here, a present. I made a copy for you. Sarah handed me a few sheets of paper. They were printed with black and white photos. Seeing them, I felt sick. This ultrasound? Don't tell me. Sarah nodded slowly and gently stroked her belly. As she came closer and whispered in my ear, I got pregnant with Philip's child. I'll be taking over as the president's wife now. At that moment, Something inside me snapped. She had mocked me, the president's wife, vaunted her youth, and tried to assert her superiority at every turn. She even took my job as the president's secretary, and now she's aiming for Philip? Well, I won't hold back anymore. I'll make sure they both plummet to the depths of hell. I decided to bless Philip and Sarah. I signed the divorce papers that Philip handed to me. Of course, I received a hefty compensation. They had a grand wedding in Italy. Things changed a week later. I got a call from Sarah. Hey, Philip hasn't come home. As his ex-wife, you must know where he is, right? Sarah's voice was frantic. I laughed maliciously, just as I had expected. I kept quiet, but Philip is... I exposed my husband's terrible secrets. He has a favorite hobby. He's probably in Vegas right now. Vegas? Ever heard of it? There's this big hotel in Las Vegas with a casino. Philip always rushes there whenever he has a chance. Sarah gasped. Does that mean? Yes, Philip is probably indulging in gambling right now. I was the one who carefully scheduled his time to prevent him from getting too involved. It seems the new secretary was kept in the dark. He didn't want to show his bad side, spending the money he earned on gambling. Sarah was silent, seemingly in shock. I let out a small laugh. I'm actually thankful to you. What? Philip started getting into gambling these past few years. It seems someone from a new business partner invited him. And what about it? Before you came along, there was still a bit of affection left in Philip. I was worried about him falling deeper, but now I've completely cut him off. Taking such a low man off my hands and even giving me a hefty compensation, there couldn't have been a better opportunity. Thanks to you, I can enjoy my second life. I laughed heartily. I could hear Sarah breathing heavily over the phone. Don't you dare joke about this, getting all high and mighty. Then, goodbye. You have a tough road ahead as the president's wife. I said sarcastically and hung up on Sarah, ignoring her shouting from the other end. A few days later, as I was relaxing in my new condo, the doorbell rang. Could it be a delivery? I haven't ordered anything. Suspicious, I looked through the peephole. There stood my ex-husband Philip, his face red with anger. You're there, aren't you, Rose? How dare you tell Sarah about the gambling? The gambling. Understanding the situation, I decided to let Philip in. He must have hired a detective to find my address. Running away now would only lead to him chasing me again. Might as well settle things here. I had important information to share with him. I prepared a clear file of documents before opening the door. It's been a while, hasn't it? I greeted him with a graceful smile. What do you mean it's been a while? After you ruined my family, how can you still smile? Philip was furious, shouting and trying to intimidate me. But such tactics don't work on a wife of many years. Oh my, why are you so red-faced? What happened? It's none of your business. I chuckled. He came here just to vent his anger, but I could see through what had happened between them. You must have had a fight with your wife. Shut up. Sarah must be unhappy with most of your income going to gambling. She told you she would manage the finances, and you're on an allowance now, right? Philip froze in shock. How? How do you know that? Did you plant a bug or something? He asked seriously, and I burst into laughter. You did the same thing with me when your gambling came to light. You said, what's wrong with spending the money I earned on my hobby? You must have repeated the same with Sarah, leading to a fight, and now you're taking it out on me. Philip clenched his fists and fell silent. Don't underestimate a wife of 30 years, I thought to myself, seeing his frustrated face. You should be thankful I managed your schedule as your secretary. I minimized your gambling time to save you from ruin. Can a naive 23-year-old do that? Well, you have no choice but to let her try. You're having a child after all. Child. At that word, Philip's face lit up. What a transparent man. Yes, Sarah and I are having a child, unlike you, who's infertile. She can give me an heir. You lost as a woman. Philip looked down on me triumphantly. That's great for you. We're happy. Don't try to ruin my family again. I came here to warn you today. Philip pointed at me, saying so. I tilted my head, puzzled. Me ruin it? I have no such intention. In fact, I'm thinking of helping you. Help me? Philip looked perplexed, clearly at a loss. Did you go with Sarah to the gynecologist? Huh? That place is for women. Sarah said she wanted to go alone, so I didn't accompany her. You saw the ultrasound photo, right? The glossy, thick paper, photo paper? No, the one I saw was just thin, regular paper. I thought so. I presented Philip with several photos I had pulled from a clear file. They were grainy black and white photos, an ultrasound of a baby. Philip's eyes widened. What, you're pregnant? Of course not. This was a gift from Sarah. She's quite prepared, isn't she? Printing these out from the internet for me? Internet? Philip looked puzzled. I handed him a piece of paper. It was a printout of a blog post from 2 years ago. The post was a pregnancy announcement with ultrasound photos. Compare this with the earlier photo. Notice anything? After looking back and forth between the photo and the article, Philip's face turned pale. You don't mean? That's right. I matched the copied photo from the article with Sarah's ultrasound photo, holding them up to the light. The baby's silhouette in the noise matched perfectly. Do you know about image search? It's a feature that searches the internet for images similar to the one you have. I found this blog using it. She must have copied the article directly, cutting out the photo neatly. So the child. Philip went pale, looking like he might collapse. I decided it was time to deliver the final blow. It's a lie. There's no one in her belly. Philip collapsed to his knees. No, that can't be. She wouldn't lie about something like that. Impossible. After everything I've bought for her, designer clothes, bags, even an expensive engagement ring? Philip vented his confused emotions by repeatedly hitting the floor with his fist. His actions were so ridiculous. I couldn't help but smile. It's a shame you couldn't become a father. When you think about it, considering your age, it's doubtful you could have fathered a child. Thinking a young partner would guarantee a child was naive. Ugh. Ask Sarah for the truth. I'll call her over now. Philip was too drained to argue. He just slumped there, silent. I had Sarah come to the condominium. Soon after, the doorbell rang. Ding ding! And I opened the door. Upon seeing me with Philip, she screamed. What are you doing here? Trying to take Philip back from me? No, didn't I say I was thankful to you? I have a baby in my belly. You can't tear us apart. Sarah screamed triumphantly, not listening to me. She entered and gently embraced Philip's shoulder. Are you okay? Let's go back and talk about the money. I'll manage the finances. That's okay, right? We'll overcome this trial together. After all, in my belly. Shut up. Philip slowly stood up. He looked at Sarah intently and quietly said, the pregnancy is a lie, isn't it? Sarah's face contorted noticeably. What? What are you talking about, honey? Tell me the truth, Sarah. The pregnancy is real. I showed you the ultrasound photo. Our child is the fruit of our love. How can you deny that? Sarah sat on the floor, breaking down in tears. But then she raised her head and glared sharply at me. You must have been filled with weird ideas by that woman. You're just jealous because you're old and I'm young and beautiful. Sarah huffed arrogantly. I laughed back at her. Is that all you have to say? Huh? Hey, Philip, let's just go home, okay? Sarah tried to pull Philip's arm, but he brushed her off. Enough, Sarah. Huh? Philip thrust the blog post copy and the ultrasound photo at Sarah. There's no escaping the truth now. I trusted you. How could you lie about something like this? I was so happy I cried. Then Sarah's expression vanished. Hey, Philip. What? Philip looked at me with wet eyes, an upward gaze seeking sympathy. I just wanted to test your love for me. I was afraid I was just being played with. That's why I said I was pregnant. Then, Philip, you said you wanted me to have it, right? I was so happy. Sarah's radiant smile left Philip speechless. So the lie was because you love me? That's right. We can start working on having a child now. My beauty and your brains. It'll be a wonderful child, eventually becoming a president and earning lots of money. That's not going to happen. I brought Philip and Sarah back to reality from their little world. Hey, we're having a moment here. Do you really think this man has money? I asked calmly. Of course, he's a president after all. I see. Indeed, our company has been passed down through generations and isn't doing badly, but that's about the company as a whole. This man is a gambler. Do you understand what that means, right? Sarah's face turned pale as she clung to Philip. Hey, Philip, you're rich, right? You told me once we're married, we'd live a wealthy life because you have more money than you know what to do with. Philip responded in a faltering voice. It's okay. I've lost some money gambling, but we're starting a new business soon. That'll be our big break. What are you talking about? I pointed out Philip's ugly lies. I know for a fact there's no new business venture planned. What do you mean? You got funding from Joseph recently, right? Where is that money now? Surely it wasn't spent on luxury brands and an engagement ring for a new wife. I glared at Philip. What? That's not something I would do. Philip laughed derisively, though his voice trembled. I sighed briefly. You embezzled the company's money. Philip swallowed hard under my steady gaze. I had suspicions. You've been saying you're starting new ventures and getting funding from Joseph, but no business ever materializes. Just one new venture after another. It was odd not to doubt, so I spoke with Joseph to gather solid evidence. You teamed up against me? Then the money Joe transferred that day was a decoy. You transferred the business funds directly into your own bank account this time. Usually you are more careful using various accounts to avoid detection. What, were you that desperate for money? Trying to prove to Sarah you're wealthy? Philip fumbled for words, confirming my suspicions. I said the last word. You're done. Get arrested and live as a criminal for the rest of your life. Shut up. It's a family matter. It'll probably just end with probation. Besides, Joe will bail me out. Even if I'm charged, I'll be out in no time. Philip reassured himself. Why do you know all this? You were supposed to be fired. You have nothing to do with this. Joseph told me. Joe did. Yeah, it's me. Joseph hired me. What? Philip opened his mouth in surprise. I explained calmly. Yes, when he heard you dumped me, he contacted me immediately. He apologized for your terrible actions and asked if he could hire me back. I said yes right away. You didn't know. Joe was keeping it from me? That bastard. I'm grateful to Joseph. He put me in charge of schedule management, and I'm earning more than before. I showed a broad smile, and Philip gritted his teeth. That Joe, I'll confront him right now. As Philip was about to leave, that's when it happened. Hey. Sarah grabbed Philip's arm. She pulled him towards her with strength, their faces almost touching. Her expression was devilish. Hey, you lowlife. Huh? Philip was taken aback by Sarah's uncharacteristically low voice. Taking a deep breath, Sarah yelled, You lied to me, flaunting your wealth, and in reality, You're just an old criminal. Don't mess with me. I'm sorry, Sarah. Philip, though terrified, took Sarah's hand. Looking into her eyes, he slowly said, But it's okay. I'll probably get probation, and I can return home. I might be ousted from the company, but we can still be happy without money if we're together. Don't joke with me. Sarah shook off Philip's hand and glared at him as if he were filth. There's no way a beautiful young woman like me would live with an old, penniless man like you. After I lied about being pregnant to get us to marriage, what a waste of time. The worst. Sarah shoved Philip aside and left the room. Sarah, wait for me. Sarah! Shut up. Sarah slammed the door shut. Philip, abandoned by his new wife, stood at the entrance like a ghost. I spoke to Philip. Please leave. This is my house. Hey, Rose. What? Can't we start over? Me as the president, and you as the secretary, like before. Philip tried to charm me with a fawning smile, but I flatly rejected him. It's impossible. I hate you. I never want to see your face again. Philip's eyes widened, and he started to tremble. Enough of that. I opened the door and pushed Philip out. As I locked the door and began watching TV, Philip quietly left the condominium, realizing it was all over. Later, Philip was arrested. He had thought Joseph would bail him out, but that expectation was wrong, and he was taken to a cold jail cell alone. Philip was arrested for embezzling funds entrusted to him by Joseph. Besides, he had told suppliers and related companies he was starting new ventures, asking for loans and then diverting those funds to his personal account for private use. Philip received a sentence without probation and won't be out for several years. As for Sarah, she was suspected of conspiring with Philip and was investigated. Though no evidence of conspiracy was found, the police discovered she had been scamming money from various businessmen, approaching wealthy-looking men in bars, becoming their girlfriend, and then claiming she needed money for a pregnancy or a parent surgery. Essentially, Philip was also a victim of Sarah's scams. Sarah was arrested for fraud. Thus, both of them ended up in the care of the police. Half a year has passed since Philip's arrest. I am still working with Joseph. Recovering the company's image after a scandal is not easy, and Joseph is always worried. I want to support him, feeling grateful to him. One evening, I returned to the company with Joseph. He sank deeply into his chair, exhaling. It's been a tiring day. We had a series of business dinners. Joseph looked into my eyes and smiled. But thanks to you, Rose, picking a good restaurant, we had an enjoyable meal. Many of the clients are around my age, so they appreciated the healthy yet luxurious dining experience. Plus, none of them knew about today's place. It was like a surprise. Thanks to that, the conversation flowed well. Thank you. Joseph wore a gentle smile. Unlike Philip, Joseph is always calm and composed. When he speaks with someone, he always uses polite language, and his sincere character is evident. I find Joseph's personal charm appealing. It's too kind of you to say. As I thanked him, Joseph sighed contentedly. To think someone as capable as you was Philip's spouse? Truly surprising. I chuckled lightly. Former spouse. I have no relation with him anymore. Haha, right. By the way, Rose, how long do you plan to work? Don't you think about retiring and living quietly at home? I answered with a smile. I love my work. As long as I'm physically able, I want to keep working. Joseph nodded happily several times. I want you to help me rebuild this company. It's going to be a long partnership, but I'm counting on you from now on. I nodded firmly. Yes, Joseph. As I responded energetically, Joseph laughed as if amused. Seeing his laughter made me feel warm inside. My second life is surely going to be enjoyable. Looking at Joseph's smile, I thought just that.